It is so very good to see you, Calvin, Rick, and Rita. Whenever I came back on my trip on Tuesday, it had on Wednesday too. But this hadn't quite gotten out of it yet. But when we were flying in to Atlanta, to Houston, from Atlanta on Tuesday night, my ear didn't pop on my left side. Everything's kind of a tunnel. So if I don't hear you, I am sorry. It's kind of weird. Last night I went out for a walk, and I know I'm a heavy walker, with my heavy feet, and normally you can't hear your feet walk, and I could, so I knew that we had a problem. So normally you walk, you kind of just carry on, but I could hear my walking and my heartbeat going really good. It's very, very weird. So, even today, it's kind of a weird thing going on here. So, I'm hoping it'll just fix itself. Just take a little bit. But anyway, so if you say anything and when you say something, please do, but if I don't hear it appropriately, that's why. Okay? Okay. That's all I'm saying. Okay, now we're going to go to Ephesians 6. Ephesians chapter 6. And last week we went with the children a little bit. And so, just for a few extra things about that, I think it's, with the child, of course, you have Colossians 3, verse 20. That will be the parallel verse to this. Matthew 18, verses 2 through probably 6, will be your best section there about letting the little child come to the Lord, don't forbid him, those kind of things. So don't be offensive to the child, those kind of things. Okay, and so that's verses Ephesians 6, 1, 2, and 3. And of course, it carries on with the promise that it may be well with you, and you may live long on the earth. So that's all dealing with the promise. Okay. Now he transitions to the fathers. Right here says, "And you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training." Some verses there put the word nurturing. And the training and admonition of the Lord. A few things there about fathers we all understand. I think kind of the father's general role in the home. He used to be the spiritual leader. He used to be the mature individual. He used to be the provider of the family. He used to be the one that will protect and love his family immensely. He is to be the one that will not mistreat his wife. And in 1 Peter 3, verse number 8, in fact says he should respect his wife as the weaker vessel. It's not dealing with being that the wife is less of a person. It's the idea, I think, of a strength there. That the man should be very weak, strength under control. And if he does not respect his wife, it says in his prayer, maybe him. So it's very important. What you got, man? I'm going to have this really good. But all done.
Could it be also that her role in society has been downplayed so much?
Yes. Yeah.
If we can incorporate this, because it has been asked, I feel like this side, not that they don't respond over here, but we just have no members on the side. But what I'm saying is, if we do that, it would help. Come on, but it would help because I can bring it to whoever wants to speak with it.
Yeah. And it is a complaint from the online group, as I hope you hear in the comments from the online group. Yeah. So, obviously, I think, men have been downplayed immensely, especially in our current culture. And, it is interesting that some of the things that our society says no to, when in the idea of men or the Bible or Christianity in general, a lot of things are in our culture now because of these things. For an example, the hospital came out of the Christian mindset. Did not come out of anybody else. Hospitals are from the Christian mindset. They didn't have to those who were less fortunate who did not provide or afford a good doctor. That's why they for the rich. So it's the hospital for everybody to come to. That was from the benevolent mindset. The idea of schools. Schools were incorporated into, as a public school now, incorporated for the distinct purpose of teaching the child to understand their Bibles without a priest. It was the whole idea of school was to train the child the way she goes. That was the whole idea behind school. Same thing with the fathers. The home is only going to be as strong as normally as both parents are, but normally the father is strong. The law of home said I broke it up because the father doing stuff. I noticed and just in general, whenever you think about broken homes, first thing you have the question is, where's dad? Never about mom. Where's dad? What's dad? What did dad do to get this there? And so, you see a lot of things of that world, and even our laws, I think, mimic a lot of that stuff. How it's always kind of the man, there could be allegations against the man, and because he's a man, he might get out, he might get something. Because he's just a man. It may not be accurate or not, but just kind of part of it. So, there's quite a lot of things against the man of God. And in this case, he is going to say, with a negative, notice this, the language change in verses 1, 2, and 3 about the child. Child should obey the parents. That's possible. But what does the father do in return? Do not provoke your child to wrath. Well, of course, the fathers would normally serve as disciplinarians of the family. It's a normal kind of what we would call a routine household. You hear the statements, wait until your dad gets home. And that means I don't want to wait until he gets home. I want to run away. So, the idea of don't provoke your children to wrath. What do you think that's talking about? What do you think he's talking about? Do not provoke their children to wrath. Go ahead.
I think it's basically. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you good.
Well, what I get out of is like kind of the way you handle them when they're doing something wrong, which I think sometimes is kind of hard because even me dealing with Adonis sometimes as a teenager, so I'm trying to, in one sense, discipline him as far as verbally, but he can act a certain way, and his response may trigger or piss me off to maybe do something to anger him. I guess if that makes sense. I think when you're dealing with the conflict, it's a slippery slope, but you have to, try to handle them the best way possible. At least that's what I get out of it. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Somebody else? What you got, Greg?
Don't forget the encouraging words.
Okay. Don't forget the encouraging words. Okay, I'm going to divorce. Go ahead, Horace.
Now for what you saying, this is something I've constantly challenged with and I work at doing with my nephew is when I approach him about some things that are sensitive to where I need to try to discipline him or correct him, I try to do it in a way to where I don't confuse him or I cause him to feel like I'm challenging him, making him become angry,
Yeah.
And that within itself is a challenge because he do already have a personal opinion that he's formed before we even get into the conversation sometime. Then sometimes I have to correct him and tell him, hey, you're not quite looking at that in a right way because it's more to it than what you see that you don't understand yet.
Yeah.
And see, now another version I have will that be the same thing. I got another version where it says, parents, do not treat your children in such a way as to make them angry. Instead, raise them with Christian discipline and instructions. So see, that's another way. The way we approach the way we discipline them and the way we instruct them is how they're going to respond to what we're trying to teach them. And if we don't do it right in the first place, we go get the results that we're instilling in them by the way we're approaching them.
Yeah. 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 That's a good, yeah.
I hear what we said. You need to consider the age of the child that's being disciplined. Like, say, Cubby's age, for example. You wouldn't want to tell him, Cubby, you're going to stay in your room for 2 weeks until you straighten out. Now that's provoking him to wrath.
Okay.
So you have to consider, or a 2-year-old whose attention span is like 0. You don't do something to them that make them do something like sit in a corner
Yeah.
for a long, long time.
Yeah.
That provokes even a child to wrath.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we discipline our children, in fact, Stanley and I were talking about it last week, that you need to, if you're going to spank them, if they needed a spanking,
Yeah.
that you ought to sit them down and say, look, this is what you did. And it's upset your mother. No. And I'm telling you that she told me what the situation was, and it was wrong. You shouldn't have done that. And this is the reason I'm giving you a spanking. And so they need to know you don't just yank them up and start whipping them. You have to sit down and explain to them what the offense was.
Yeah.
And that this discipline is a result of the offense. And then when you get through with the disciplinary action, you sit them down again and you tell them that this is not something I really like to do, but it's something that I'm instructed to do to discipline my son. And I said, the reason I do it, it may not look like it, but it's because I love you. And I do not expect to see this kind of conduct again out of you because I know that you understand now.
Right.
So it's a matter of approach to a bad situation that I don't think most dads enjoy spanking their children, or mothers are there even more. They don't enjoy it either. But it's necessary.
Okay. Okay. Now there are, let me look at here. Two different approaches inside the Bible. From the man's side, thanks for the comments about how they look at a child. We've all kind of gone over here because some people inside the Bible, and I'm using King Saul as an example. King Saul was a rebellious individual. He may have appeared on the outside to look like a king, but on the inside, he was very rebellious. He had a lot of trouble with him and the Word of God. Okay? He would do things strictly because he had the authority to do things. And he would exercise that authority if he so desired. At the end of his life, when him and Jonathan died on the field of battle, it seemed kind of as like a bittersweet moment. Now they died. But do you realize that there was one point in time when Saul actually thought about killing Jonathan because he was afraid of losing the throne to Jonathan, his own son? He had a thought process. He said, I'm not going to lose my power. I'm going to take out everybody else because I am the one in control. And even if that meant to disrupt, disturb, and destroy his own child. Okay. I think that kind of mentality is prevalent among some people. Because, as the authority goes, I have it, you can't do nothing about it. And I understand that entirely. And then there's the other side, which is David. Now, David took the opposite route of Saul. He didn't want to destroy his son. But when Absalom, one of David's kids, was very, very rebellious, even raising up an insurrection against David and his kingship, 2 Samuel 18, verse 33, has the words of David. He says, and the king was deeply moved and wept and went up to the chamber over the gate, and he wept. And as he went, he said, thus, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died in your place. O Absalom, my son, my soul. David did not want to destroy his son. Now, he couldn't let his son do what he wanted to do either. But you see a different thought process. Saul was happy that his son was going to go away. David did not want his son to go away. And David, has is it a moniker? It's got a moniker of being called the man after God's own heart. To carry on with his duties, as his consequences, but the law that David had for his son never wavered. He has to do. He has responsibilities. And so I think you see a different mentality there as they approach the child. And I think when you look at what's happening here in Ephesians 6, verse 4, about fathers not to provoke your children to wrath, there should never be a moment, I believe, when a child should not believe that they still have the love of their parents. Sometimes we might want to discipline a child because it bothers us. You know, it's a nuisance to me. I don't do this again. Now they go, that's what we got. When actually it may not have been a negative issue, we made it. You know, depending on, you know, and sometimes, and we've seen this a few times, where some days you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and that's your problem. I've done it, my problem. And I'm just not happy for whatever reason. You know, they've had a late night working, and they've had stress at the job, or whatever. You know, home life still some pressure now, or family still some pressure, or who knows, whatever. And I'll get out my child because he's right there. He's not going to say a word. I can get out my frustrations, and that's wrong. And so, you know, I think right here he's talking about every child is to be respected. Every child is to be thought about, prayed over. And even if they're in a rebellious stage, there should never be a time when apparently in this case, father's love should ever subside. Like in David, who, you know, his child could have been ridiculous. He still says, I still love, I still die my child, even though he has been wrong. I didn't hold mentality that I think if we have more than mindset, you know, and that's why he says in the second phrase that what all the fathers do, we should be in charge of training up that child in the nurture and the training and understand the Lord. That should be his job. And that goes back to Deuteronomy 6, 1 through 6, really. The same thought process. When do you show a child the Bible? Well, when they get up, middle of the day, when they go to bed. That was the both things. And you know, it's interesting, even this is what a big called a child. Because you know, when you look at verses like John 1, verse 12, where it says that Jesus was given the authority or the right that they may be called the children of God. That's his us. Now we understand that sometimes God puts discipline on us, according to Hebrews 12, verse 8, 8 through 12. And it's about a long leading section there. And what is the purpose of that discipline?
Part of that.
Family, yeah, part of the family. Yeah, you got to stay in line. It might require some training. You know, it might require some extra pushes here or there. But, you know, that's the whole point of this, is that they may understand consequences have pressure, different kinds of pressure, different kinds of disciplines, different kinds of consequences with it. Because the child has to understand. Right, he's part of the family. That's right. So, let's see. Is there anything else you want to say about verse 4 before we go on to verse 5?
What do you think we gonna do about this?
Yeah.
What do you think we gonna do about this? And see, and like, what do you make? The last part of verse 4 is what really ground the parent in what their intentions are, because it says, but bring them up in the discipline and instructions of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and in King James say nurture and admonition.
Yeah.
So see, basically it's to let the Lord guide you in how you're raising your kids,
Yeah.
you know. And then as long as you bring them up in the discipline And the instruction is no doubt from what you're doing to where they won't have any doubt in how they understand. Because see, you're giving them a clear approach that they don't even understand yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're giving them a clear approach that they don't even understand yet. And I used to hate that statement because every time I heard that statement, as we would say, the belt came out.
Yeah.
The belt came out. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One of the things that I remember reading sometime, and it taught me a lot, is you stop and don't major on minors.
Yes.
People tend to not think through what happened before they act. So don't major on minors.
Right. That's not what I was thinking about a minute ago, that how sometimes the those how you're having a bad day, you're gonna put it on them, even though they may not have done anything. And sometimes, I think, I know that many of you never get on going, but, that it's very easy to kind of have a comfortable situation. You know that they're gonna do something, put something in the room, and you don't wait for them to do it, so you get on to it. You kind of set them up. So, move the other way, move the things around, or whatever. You know something that, you can, they see this, or do this, or somebody triggering. Go ahead.
Yes, I was just thinking about my husband. You all didn't know him. He was 6'6" and weighed about 190 pounds. So he could have been very intimidating to a child.
Yeah.
But rather than talk down to make Eric, our son, feel afraid of him, he would take time and talk to him. And it was something that he needed chastisement about, that he talked. And it got to a point one day, so I said, really, I called him to the garage. I said, can you just stop talking? If you're going to hit him, where's the boy? He said, no, I want him to understand. And usually I'm just telling him what the Word of God said. This is what the Bible says. But I had to learn how to step out of the way and let him do the training that he saw necessary. And from the age of 8 on up, we never had to lay a hand on our son. We were able to talk to him.
Yeah.
And we helped him to understand how he was going contrary to what the Bible says.
Yeah. And I couldn't tell you where I heard it from. I heard it somewhere. I thought it was really good. They said that one of the true tests of leadership in the home is as a authority figure being happy to apologize to the child. I thought it was really good because, I couldn't think of every time I'm not what I said. So it shows, that you can be wrong too. And I think that kind of thing goes along with kind of what you're saying. That kind of maybe you talk to them and say, I messed up. I went too far, I did something I should have done, or whatever. And I think that goes both ways. And I think that they will have a healthier respect for you too. And still carry on with what you were going to do if it was needed. But I think that's the time too, we have to acknowledge the ability happening too. Go ahead.
No, what you mentioned is, that's encouraging for me because just this past week with my nephew, I had to use that example. Well, I had to admit to him something that I did wrong. And then he asked me, why do you? I said, well, I'm doing this because I want to be, not just be an example, I want to give you guidance on how to approach things from your own perspective. Because a lot of times, we don't really realize our own conclusion can be distorted because of the way we feel or we think or we perceive. And I say, man, you don't need to get caught up like that because it can cause you problems.
Yeah.
And I say, now, and he asked me, I said, the only reason I did that, I said, it wasn't nothing that was catastrophic, but I have a conscience, and the best thing for me to do, if I did something wrong, I need to let you know that, because that's not only respect I'm giving to you, that's self-respect them really sharing back for the fact that I have a conscience to realize I didn't treat this situation right.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I think that shows them a Christian character. And
That's what the sister was saying.
yeah, I think it's very important. Go ahead.
So, my mother apologized in case she whooped you, you shouldn't have got that whooping.
Yeah.
Her statement was, oh, I'm sorry, if that wasn't you, you're getting whooped for the one I should have whooped you for. So, and you can't say anything because the first thing you got away with.
Yeah.
That she didn't know about, so, you know.
That's fine. Go ahead.
I've had to do it a few times. It's probably like small stuff, but for me, it's for Adonis to understand accountability. So even though I'm trying to show him that, but I'm also trying to explain to him and show him that, hey, you are wrong. You have to take accountability as a young man, or somebody that's growing to be a man. So it's just it's about accountability, and that's something that I guess as a teen or something that he deals with. So I also try to show him that, hey, it's not just a you thing, it's an adult, it's everybody. So we have to be responsible. And when we're wrong, we take ownership and we move on.
Yeah, right. Because at the end of the day, it's still a fallible person training another fallible person.
Mm-hmm.
And so there'll be times when we didn't know the full story, or we didn't know the full picture, and because they didn't even work each other to share it, go with it. And you just let you went and you made all you had, and then well, I just told you I did this. It's nothing to have to do. I was looking at like, well, if you had told me, you probably would have put the whole thing. Didn't know what it was. But there are all kinds of times. That's the thing too. You got to just do what you got. You can't read into it too much or add anything extra unless you know. But I think that's just a part of it. Okay. Verse 5, we'll go in here. Verse 5, now we don't have, there are three different ways servants are seen inside the Bible. First way, of course, out of the slave against their own will. Second way is kind of like an indentured servant that have a debt to pay off. They'll pay off to the one that loaned them money. Let's say I'll leave the services, I'll pay back the debt. And then the other thing is where somebody may purchase an individual's time for a certain amount of time once they get that thing. Okay? Those are the different ways that the servitude thing would have worked back at this time, most likely. Right here, he's saying bond servants. To me, the bond servant is dealing with the one that has a debt. Okay? So, bond servants, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, and sincerity of heart as to Christ. Not with eye service as men pleasers, but as bond servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with goodwill, doing service as to the Lord and not to men. Knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same from the Lord, whether he is a slave or free. And you masters do the same thing to them, giving up threatening, knowing that your own master also is in heaven, and there is no partiality in him. Now, aside of the current culture, we would call this the attitude of an employer, an employee with an employer. So we would apply this section today. Okay? So, when it comes to verse 5, though, what should be the attitude? We do take the employee mentality. When you're in someone's service, they give you a paycheck. What should be your mentality? Well, there should be an attitude of obedience to the employer. I think that's pretty important. Whenever, and I would even say that, sometimes whenever there is a struggle with someone that's not going to play by the rules of the company, where does that person normally land? And they're out. You ain't abiding by the rules of the boss, you're going to go. Even if anything is wrong, because you're following what everybody else is supposed to be doing, you got it. Okay? And so how should they respond? With fear and trembling, sincerity as far as to Christ. And so that's the idea. I think that a Christian should be a good, honest worker. The modern definition for this. Okay? What do you think he means here about not with eye service? What do you think that's talking about? What does eye service have to do with anything?
Looking busy.
Looking busy. Okay. Busy doing nothing. Looking busy. Okay. As men pleasers, but as bondservants of Christ. So who are you really, I won't say, I just will be indebted with it. Who are you really indebted to? To the one, your employee, or your employer, or is it who? As Christ. Okay. And it's interesting from the standpoint of Ephesians 6, how it went from children to this. And then if you go to Hebrews 2, how it deals with the distinction between a servant and a son. And he uses Moses. He says, Moses was indeed a servant, but you are of the house of the son. So I think, it's a different mentality attached to both. One's a hireling, one's the heir. So right here, he's saying that you're not there because you're a hireling, but you behave as an heir of God. You behave as a servant of Christ. Go ahead.
I can give you an example too. This is like, I remember this when I was working at the place. And I used to watch some of my coworkers. And how they would react when our manager would walk through the shop. And see, and that's kind of a lesson I used to try to talk to some of them. I say, man, why should you get nervous when he walks through? Because he can't harm you if you're doing what you need to do.
Yeah.
But that's what is meant by this scripture, They trying to gain his approval. In other words, they change it, they wait till they see him before they start to do something to make it look like they trying to gain his approval. Mm-hmm. And they should, and they like the last part of the verse, tell them what it says, and do it with a sincere heart, as though you were serving Christ. In other words, you have to have that mindset to understand what your intention is along with your action.
Yeah.
And that covers all that other stuff that's what they said. It didn't cover everything, you don't even have to worry about.
Yeah. Right. Because, and one of the things of, when you look at Galatians 5, the fruit of the Spirit there, you have to apply the fruit of the Spirit with yourself as you go through the situations. That's what you're going, I think. And I entirely agree. Because how does someone know that you're a Christian? Well, you produce these fruit. Well, this fruit. One fruit, isn't it? You produce these products of the fruit of the Spirit here, which would be, love and peace and self-control and all those good things. Except for those stuff.
That part of that verse really,
I'm going to get you ready.
really say because you want to gain the approval. A lot of times, we should realize that if we're skilled, just like me, I was blessed to be skilled and had good people. guided me through my success, was I never wavered from the principles of not mistreating people. I always weighed on my own character. Sometimes I would take wrong just to uphold my character. Because that's what it meant by people you don't never know you're talking to. Some people can have influence, but man, they can cause you problems.
Yeah. 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 Go ahead. You done? Sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
When I was a trainee, a management trainee in the grocery business, well, sometimes on Saturdays, the owners of the company would tour various locations. Well, when word got out that they were in our location, they would call up and say, the Lewises are visiting stores today. And man, people were scattering. Well, the thing is, you're not preparing a store for business because of the Lewises. You're preparing a store for business because of the customer.
Yeah.
And then I had a friend, real quickly, he had the Pasadena store, Kmart Food. And in the middle of a Saturday afternoon, Barry Lewis, the vice president, comes in and he tours Larry around the store. They get to the produce aisle. Okay, the produce aisle is the messiest aisle back then in the whole store. And there were tracks from the carts, where people spill stuff and you can't keep up. It's impossible to keep up with. And so Barry told Larry, the store manager, he said, look at this floor. What is it with this? How come this is in this condition? And Larry said, well, they were, all the managers were on first name basis with all of them. He said, well, Barry, if you put 2,000 people through your living room, how would your floor look? and he stopped and thought for a minute. He said, I guess you got a point.
Yeah. But yeah, the employees too. Yeah, that's a little. Yeah, I understand. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so we'll stop here. Verse 6. Okay. Next week, pick up right here about doing a little bit off from the heart. What that means. Pull out a few verses there, and then we'll go. Okay. Thank you for being in class today. I appreciate you, and we'll have worship here in a few minutes.